Let's also say good evening to Mr. P. Chidambaram, joining me right now for an exclusive conversation. Mr. Chidambaram, representative and representing the Punjab government in this crucial case that we were discussing through the day. Mr. Chidambaram, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here. I want to start off with a conversation that happened in the court based on the petition which is against the farmers' protest and saying that they should be moved out from that location. To which you said, who was blocking the roads?
I'm sorry, I don't comment on court cases. I was appearing for the state of Punjab, and what happened in court is there for everyone to see, and the order passed for the judges will be there for everyone to read. I do not comment on court proceedings. Please continue the interview on the subject, and it concerns me as an individual, as a member of the Congress party.
All right, Mr. Chidambaram, let me ask you this question then. It's still a big talking point that people are being inconvenienced, that the people of Delhi and neighboring cities are having to face a problem because a protest is inconveniencing them and blocking their roads. It's a similar argument that was raised by the government even when the Shaheen Bagh protests were taking place. What is your response to this? When a large-scale protest happens, there is obviously going to be some amount of inconvenience, but can the protesters be blamed for it?
Again, you're going back to the court proceedings. I will not comment on court proceedings.
I'm not. I'm asking you on the idea of a large-scale protest that takes place anywhere in our country and the argument that is made, be it any issue, from CAA to NRC to the farmers. The argument that is made that you are inconveniencing people, thereby you shouldn't be holding a protest.
People don't come to the streets on a whim. People don't leave their homes and camp for 20 or 22 days in the bitter cold as a lark. People come when they suffer or they think they suffer grave injustice. I think you are belittling and diminishing the nature of the injury suffered by the farmers of Punjab as they see it, as they are articulating it. Of course, there will be some inconvenience to people, but what about the massive threat to the lives and livelihood of the farmers of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and other neighboring states?
Mr. Chidambaram, the government says they have decided to not hold the winter session of the parliament because of the rising cases of COVID. Now, why is it that the Congress party believes that's not really the reason, but the fact that the government is trying to run away from a debate on farmers?
How are legislators meeting in the state legislatures? How are parliaments elsewhere in the world meeting? The British Parliament is meeting when the pandemic toll is rising in the British Parliament. The US Congress is meeting. It is for the government and the parliamentary secretariat to limit the number in the parliament complex to the MPs alone and to keep out all those who are quite unnecessary to the deliberations in parliament. All over the world, if legislatures are meeting, I don't see why, and even in India, if state legislatures are meeting, I don't see any reason why the parliament should not meet. Those who are extremely vulnerable will not attend the parliament, but that is part of the process. But the bulk of the members will attend, as they did attend last time. You have to be more careful, take more precautions.
But then, is it not all right to say, as the government says, it's just a matter of a few weeks, we meet any which ways for the budget session, and then we can discuss what you want?
What is the guarantee that the pandemic would have gone in a few weeks? Mm-hmm. What if if there is a spurt, will they cancel the budget session also? I think the answer is not to cancel the session of Parliament. I think that is far too important an instrument, far too important an institution to be cancelled merely on a whim or a fear. Yes, you have to be careful, but take steps. World over, people are taking steps And under those restricted conditions, parliaments are meeting.
Okay. Can the opposition now mount pressure on the government inside or outside the parliament to repeal these laws that seem to have become the bone of contention even with the farmers? Nothing more, to repeal these laws. The government repeatedly insists, well, the parliament passed it and the parliament passed it with a majority.
Parliament passed it in a manner which is a mockery of parliamentary proceedings. I think you have got selective amnesia, I'm afraid. Go back and see what happened in Parliament on that day. There were members who wanted to move an amendment. They were not allowed. They were sitting in their seats and raising their hands and trying to catch the attention of the deputy chairman, and they wanted to move the amendments. The deputy chairman, with great respect, adjourned the House, ignoring their request. And the excuse trotted out the next day was that they were not in their seats. The visuals, the video proves that they were in their seats.
You're absolutely right.
Parliament passed that law. Parliament passed that law without a proper vote. How do you accept a Parliament passage of a law without a vote as a proper passage?
Then why was it not challenged, Mr. Chidambaram? Could it not have been challenged in a court of law very clearly? And we debated it at that point of time as well. The visuals were for us to see, but it was never challenged by any opposition party.
You're wrong. There are 3 petitions in the Supreme Court challenging these very laws. I mean, why don't you gather your facts correctly, please? There are 3 petitions, and the 3 petitioners were present in court today. It was listed before court today, and the court said, we are not taking up the petitions challenging the validity of the laws. We're only looking at the other petitions filed by 2 individuals complaining about the inconvenience to all sides by the massive protest on the border of Haryana and Delhi. I think you should go back and gather your facts correctly.
You're right on that front. Yes, they did say that they're going to take up the pleas on the validity of laws at a later point. Today was simply about the location of the protest and the protest itself. So let me ask you this question, and we've spoken about it earlier, but that charge continues against you, that it was your party and you specifically that advocated some clauses of these reforms that today, Mr. Chidambaram, you oppose.
There again, either you don't read our manifesto or you forget what you read. Please go back and read the 2 paragraphs. We said we must open thousands of markets, farmers' markets, in small towns and large villages. Make them accessible to the farmers. If thousands of markets are opened all over India, how many small towns and large village panchayats are there in India? They're running into the thousands. If every small town and every large panchayat has a market, then farmers can access those markets within 2 or 3 kilometers. Today in Maharashtra, the state I represent in the Rajya Sabha, the average distance a farmer has to walk to reach a mandi, APMC mandi, is 25 kilometers. In Tamil Nadu, this APMC is a joke. There's supposed to be 252 mandis. Do you know the entire turnover, annual turnover of the mandi? Is 129 crore. Are you seriously suggesting that the value of the agricultural produce in Tamil Nadu, which has to be marketed as 129 crore, it'll be several times the multiple of 129 crore. Nobody goes to the mandi because it serves a very few people. What we want to do is expand that service. A mandi, a regulated mandi, must be available to every farmer. Once you do that, once thousands and thousands of farmers' markets are opened all over India and make them accessible to the farmer, then this APMC becomes just another mandi.
So why don't
the manifesto completely?
So why can't the state governments, Mr. Chidambaram, why can't the state governments bring in these changes?
The state governments of Punjab, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan have pass their own laws subsequent to the central laws, and they are lightly regulating the areas outside the mandi complex.
Yeah.
They are. The point is, can we allow an unregulated market for agricultural produce? This is a fundamental economic issue. Address that issue. An unregulated market for agricultural produce will lead to disaster. Why do we have a regulated market for stocks and shares? Why do you have a regulated market for corporate bonds? Why do you want an unregulated marketplace for agricultural produce? I mean, please ask yourself these fundamental questions. If stocks and shares of listed companies must be bought and sold only in a regulated environment, should something so vital as agricultural produce be bought and sold in an unregulated environment?
I know we're a little short on time, but since I have you with me, and just a few minutes ago, just a couple of hours ago, in fact, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman spoke, and she was speaking at a CI event where she said that there is only so much that the government can do in times of a pandemic to help the economy. In fact, she then goes on to speak about how if in 91, when these reforms were brought in, at that point of time, if the then government had done a lot more, the problem would have been lesser today. Essentially, Mr. Chidambaram, the finance minister of our country, is saying that no matter what steps the government takes right now, the economy is going to be in a bad shape because of the pandemic.
The FM has no clue of the situation that we were in 1991. I'd like to ask her, where was she in 1991? She's probably out of college or maybe in her first job. Please don't become so presumptuous that you can tell us 29 years later what we should have done in 1991. What we did in 1991, what Mr. Narasimha Rao as Prime Minister and Dr. Manmohan Singh as Finance Minister did in 1991 will be written in letters of gold. That is the turning point which brought India out of a closet, of a cloistered atmosphere. I don't think the finance minister has any credentials to comment on what ought to have happened in 1991. She was given an economy at the end of March 2014, which was growing according to her government's own numbers put out after the NDA government took over, which was growing at 6.4%. And what has this NDA government done with that economy? 8 quarters of slowing growth, followed by 2 quarters of negative growth. So 10 quarters is what distinguishes this government. If you don't know what to do, listen to people. Don't rubbish what was done 29 years ago, and don't plead helplessness of what you can and cannot do today. Every day, eminent economists are saying, do this, do this. Even Mr. Arvind Panagaria says that. The government doesn't listen. The government thinks that all the wisdom is with the government and they don't have to listen to any economists. Don't listen to political parties. Listen to economists. Listen to Dr. Abhijit Banerjee, a Nobel laureate. Listen to Dr. Rajan. Listen to Dr. Jahangir Aziz. Listen to Dr. Arvind Panagaria. Listen to them. What do they say? Unanimously, they say, we require a fiscal stimulus.
Yes.
You don't want to do a fiscal stimulus, you bear the consequences. Don't plead helplessness.
Okay, Mr. Chidambaram, thank you so much for joining us. Always good to have you on the show. I appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you.